approximately £35,000, if memory serves me.
But let's just say if I was too strict and it was to grade a 6, then we would be looking at $80,000 to $120,000.
Oh my God. He's going to be so happy with that.
Some were inherited, some sat untouched for decades, and some looked far too ordinary to change anyone's life. But each of them became one of the most legendary appraisals in Antiques Roadshow history. Welcome to our channel. Today, we're counting down the unforgettable treasures that left experts speechless and revealed values beyond anyone's imagination. Subscribe, ring the bell, and let's get started. We've officially reached the top 10, and the next case begins in a way that will feel very familiar to longtime Antiques Roadshow viewers. An old box, a forgotten piece of jewelry, and a family that knew almost nothing about where it came from. After their mother passed away, the family began sorting through years of stored keepsakes and personal belongings. Among the various small boxes was a piece of jewelry that nobody could remember ever seeing before. It had spent years sitting quietly out of sight. No one knew its history, and no one was even certain it was genuine.
When our mother died, because my sister here, we went through sort of various little boxes and things of nothing in particular, and we each had a choice, and this was my choice. And I mean, I don't even know if it's real. We never saw it. My mother never wore it.
At that point, it sounded like the beginning of countless other family heirloom stories. But within moments, the expert knew he was looking at something far more interesting.
Yes, well, it certainly is real, actually. It's a most fascinating jewel.
The piece wasn't actually made during the 18th century. Instead, it belonged to the 19th century revival of 18th century French jewelry, a period when designers looked back to the elegance and craftsmanship of an earlier age for inspiration. Blue enamel, diamonds, rubies, an intricate gold framework, and hidden on the reverse was a small locket compartment designed to hold a photograph or even a lock of hair from someone dearly loved. This wasn't simply jewelry created to be worn. It was jewelry created to preserve memories.
It's inspired by 18th century France. But we can say with absolute confidence this isn't an 18th century jewel. It's an 18th century revival one. And blue enamel, diamonds, a little ruby in the front, and turn it over and there's a locket at the back.
But the surprises didn't end there. Accompanying the locket was a remarkable bead brooch created by La Cloche Frères, one of France's most prestigious jewelry houses and a direct competitor to Cartier during the golden age of French luxury jewelry.
It's absolutely there. They're a very distinguished firm running in competition with Cartier.
Set with Salon sapphires, diamonds, ruby eyes, and brought to life through an incredibly dynamic design, the brooch quickly became the star of the appraisal.
And everybody wants this thing, honestly they do, and value is to do with measured want. That's all that value is, and I'm going to tell you that in measured want that's £10,000.
God.
The locket didn't reach quite that level, but even it delivered a valuation that left the family stunned.
Bigger, but quite enough at say £4,500–5,000.
Not bad at all for a piece that spent years forgotten inside a family box. And it's exactly the kind of discovery that has made Antiques Roadshow famous for uncovering hidden treasures in the most unexpected places. Some objects are so small that most people would dismiss them as old makeup cases. But sometimes a compact can be worth more than a major piece of jewelry. This case began with 3 accessories that had been passed down through generations of the same family. At first glance, they looked like elegant little cases designed for evenings out. Then the name Cartier appeared. And after that came an even bigger surprise.
My mom's mother inherited them from her cousin. He got them from his parents, and I've now inherited them.
The appraiser started with the first compact, a Cartier design in 1/8, karat gold dating from around the 1940s. Elegant, refined, and created for fashionable evenings. Then he picked up the second piece, and the owner was immediately surprised to learn that it was Cartier too.
Let's start with the first one here, the Cartier. This would be the latest of the group, probably circa 1940, 45.
Right.
and it has one little ruby set into the compact. The second one is Cartier also.
Oh, it is, okay.
This is from the Art Deco period.
At this point, many people would assume that the two Cartier pieces were the stars of the story. But the third item changed everything. It was a Minaudière from Paris. And when the appraiser opened it, he immediately spotted the maker's name, Arnold Ostertag, a company less famous than Cartier, but regarded as every bit as talented.
And the first thing that I saw was its maker, Arnold Ostertag, out of Paris. They're not as well known as Cartier and Van Cleef & Arpels, they're neighbors.
Sure.
But they were every bit as talented.
Then the case opened to reveal a miniature world from the 1930s. Inside were a watch, a lighter, a lipstick compartment, a mirror, and a powder compartment. A luxury accessory designed to carry almost everything a woman might need for an elegant evening.
The case itself is 18 karat gold, and it opens to reveal the watch. Here is the lighter, and then the below section opens to reveal the lipstick.
Sure.
So once you take those two sections out, the case opens, and one compartment would be for her powder and a mirror.
Yeah.
Then came the valuations.
I would say an auction estimate, you would be looking at $3,000 to $5,000.
Wow.
The black enamel Art Deco Cartier case, conservative estimate because of the condition issue, I would say at auction $6,000 to $8,000.
Oh my gosh.
And this one, the Minaudière, is the star of the group. At auction, a conservative estimate would be $15,000 to $20,000.
That's amazing.
So it's really a wonderful collection.
Wow.
The first Cartier compact was valued at $3,000 to $5,000. The Art Deco Cartier case was estimated at $6,000 to $8,000. But the true star was the Ostertag Minaudière, with an auction estimate of $15,000 to $20,000.
Brought in part of a tea set, which I inherited. My mother passed away in 2006, so I've had them for the last 12 years. My father purchased it at auction in San Francisco around 1961 or 62. The one story that I gathered from speaking with my sister is that my dad picked this up, brought it home, and my mom was furious with him for spending the money on something non-essential.
Some objects are once seen as unnecessary purchases, but many years later, those same objects reveal that someone may have noticed something valuable that everyone else missed. When the owner's father bought this silver tea set at an auction in San Francisco in the early 1960s, the first reaction in the family was not excitement. His mother was actually upset because she believed the money had been spent on something they did not really need. But the piece that once caused disagreement remained in the family for decades. And the real story only began when the expert examined the small marks underneath. Those marks revealed that this was not an ordinary silver set, but a piece of Japanese silver craftsmanship made by Konoike. That origin brought the story back to the Meiji period, a time when Japan expanded its connections with the world and its craftsmen began introducing their skills to an international audience. During this era, many pieces were not created only to be used. They were created to demonstrate the highest levels of craftsmanship. And this coffee pot and teapot showed that through every detail. At first glance, the shape may look familiar to Western eyes, but the decoration carries a distinctly Japanese identity. The dragons were not simply placed on the surface. The artist transformed them into part of the entire design, from the lines wrapping around the body to the handle to the feeling of movement throughout the piece. Combined with the hammered finish on the surface, every detail showed that this was not a mass-produced object, but the work of a highly skilled craftsman. But what made the story even more interesting was that these two pieces were only part of the original set. The family still had many other pieces from the tea service. After more than 100 years, when many silver sets have been separated or lost, having a large set survive together can make a significant difference.
This tea and coffee service is quite rare. They're in really good condition. The two objects you've brought here today, I would insure them together for $30,000.
Okay. Wow. That's a lot considering what else is still unreviewed. All right. I better get them insured.
Just the two pieces brought in were worth tens of thousands of dollars, while the rest of the collection had not even been examined yet. A random decision at an auction ended up preserving a piece of Japanese craftsmanship more than 100 years old. And sometimes the things one generation sees as unnecessary become the treasures that the next generation is lucky enough to inherit. The Cartier citrine jewelry.
Sometimes a jewel will give me that immediate head rush of excitement, and that's what these jewels have done to me.
Not every piece of jewelry makes an expert react before the appraisal has even begun. These pieces did. Sitting inside a red Cartier box were a brooch and a pair of earrings that had belonged to the owner's mother. For years, they were simply cherished family heirlooms. The owner remembered seeing her mother wear them, but never realized just how significant they might be. That changed the moment the Cartier name came into the conversation.
The red box with the Cartier signature inside, they are Cartier jewels, and they are both signed on the back.
The Cartier signature immediately caught the expert's attention. But the real surprise was their age. The family believed the pieces had been purchased in the 1970s. Instead, the expert identified them as being much older.
They are 40s jewels. Because of the austerity years, obviously with the war, you couldn't get the diamonds and the rubies and emeralds and sapphires, and so other stones took over.
These jewels dated from the 1940s, a period shaped by wartime shortages. With diamonds, rubies, emeralds, and sapphires becoming difficult to obtain, designers turned to alternative gemstones such as citrine, topaz, and aquamarine. Cartier embraced those materials and transformed them into bold, distinctive designs that remain highly collectible today. Although the earrings had been altered from clip-ons to pierced earrings, they still retained considerable value. The brooch, however, was the piece that truly captivated the expert.
This brooch, which I would run away. I would run away with. I just think it's spectacular. The earrings, because they've been altered, you'd be looking in a region of about £10,000. I would say you're probably looking in the region of around about £30,000.
Together, the family jewelry was worth around £40,000.
Goodness me, that is a lot more than I thought.
But for the owner, the true value extended beyond Cartier and beyond the citrine gemstones. These pieces still carried memories of her mother wearing them on special occasions, turning a remarkable collection of jewelry into an irreplaceable part of her family's story. Some objects seem like pirate treasure when you're a child. Years later, that same object can end up on Antiques Roadshow with a valuation reaching $150,000. That's exactly what happened with this cuff.
Well, my mother gave it to me as a wedding present about 20 years ago. And before that, it had been a gift to my mother from her great aunt Helen Hayes.
Well, why don't you read how she...
So my mother's name is Ani, and she says, "Darling Ani, your Uncle Charlie picked this as a gift from me years ago. I want you to have it, sort of as a gift of love from both of us. Devotedly, Aunt Helen."
The story was already compelling because of the note that accompanied it. But for years, the owner had little idea what she actually possessed. Some people suggested it was merely costume jewelry. One person even offered her $1,000 after seeing a photograph. Fortunately, she turned the offer down.
I had a friend who sort of intimated that it was costume jewelry and stones were glass. And then I showed someone a photograph of it, and they said, "Well, you know, those stones, I think they're real, and I'll give you $1,000 for it." And I said, "It's a family heirloom. I don't think I'd sell it for $1,000.
As the research began, the appraiser connected the design to two legendary names in fashion history: Verdura, Chanel, and the famous Maltese cross cuffs that appeared in iconic portraits of Coco Chanel herself.
One of the first pieces he made for her was a pair of Maltese cross bracelets that looked just like this. And she wore them, one on each wrist, and there are a lot of very famous portraits of Coco Chanel wearing these Verdura designed cuffs.
But that was only half the story. Authentic Chanel cuffs from this period are already incredibly rare. This example carried an even bigger surprise. The stones were not imitation gems.
The costume pieces from the 1930s are so rare. When they do come up for auction, the costume jewelry collectors go crazy for them. In 2016, a Verdura for Chanel bracelet that was enamel, a different design, not the iconic Maltese cross, with all faux stones, and it sold for $100,000.
Diamonds, sapphires, rubies, aquamarines, emeralds, and gold were all incorporated into a single cuff. Combined with its provenance through Helen Hayes, it became a piece that stood far outside the ordinary.
To say that this is a rare piece is an understatement. Being as rare as it is from the 1930s and having all real stones, we think a very conservative auction estimate would be at least $100,000 to $150,000.
Goodness. Oh my word.
From a piece once mistaken for costume jewelry and offered only $1,000, this cuff was finally restored to its proper place in history. A genuine treasure carrying the names of Helen Hayes, Chanel, and Verdura.
Sunlight and gold, look at it. It has to be gold.
Beautiful.
Looking like that, doesn't it? What a wonderful, wonderful object. And it's a gold box, isn't it?
Yeah.
But the gold box is secondary to its real function.
At first glance, this object immediately catches attention with its shining gold surface and detailed decoration. But what truly impressed the expert was not just its luxurious appearance. Inside this small box was one of the most complex creations made by 19th century craftsmen, a singing bird automaton. It combined the art of jewelry making with miniature clock making, where every movement was powered by an incredibly detailed mechanical system. And the clue inside revealed where this special creation came from.
And inside we can see the name of the supplier, and he's J.M. Badoulet and Sons of Geneva. And that's sometimes a clue to people who know about these things that this is going to be an automaton.
Geneva has long been a famous center for high-quality watches and mechanical creations. In the early 1800s, automatons like this were considered symbols of wealth and exceptional craftsmanship. But the true value of this box was only revealed when the mechanism inside came to life.
It's rather exciting moment. Shall we give it a go?
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Here we go. Oh, look at that.
Once the box was activated, it showed why these creations once amazed collectors. Inside was a mechanical bird designed to imitate life, from tiny movements to sound. The fact that such a complex mechanism could still function after more than 2 centuries is what made the object so special.
And he's made of hummingbirds' feathers.
Oh, really?
And his beak is of ivory, and he's got little ruby eyes, I think. And it's a miracle of craftsmanship and clockmaking skill, really.
Every small detail proved that this was not just a gold box, but a rare piece of mechanical art. With precious materials, complex craftsmanship, and the ability to still work after hundreds of years, it became one of the most unique discoveries on Antiques Roadshow. Case 7. Late Victorian Blue Diamond Ring. The Fabergé flower.
We call it the regimental jewel. The regiment, the Worcestershire Yeomanry, later to become the Queen's Own Worcestershire Hussars, was formed in 1794 to protect these shores against a Napoleonic invasion.
At first glance, it's just a small flower displayed in a clear vase. But from the moment the expert saw it, he knew he was looking at something extraordinary. Known as the regimental jewel, this piece belongs to the Worcestershire Yeomanry. Its story dates back to the Boer War, when soldiers left home to fight overseas. Before they departed, they were given silk pear blossoms to wear on their hats as a reminder of the county they were leaving behind. After the war, the Countess of Dudley commissioned Fabergé to create a permanent version of that flower.
This looks for all the world like a glass vase, and there's a stratagem here that it's filled with water, and this is the meniscus, the top of the water, but in actual fact it isn't. It's a solid block of what is apparently glass, but it's certainly not. It's stone. It's rock crystal. The flowers are made of enameled silver and tiny silver stamens, but in the center there's a dewdrop of diamond.
The closer it was examined, the more remarkable it became. The vase isn't glass at all, but carved rock crystal. The stem is made of gold. The blossoms are crafted from enameled silver. At the center of each flower sits a tiny diamond dewdrop. Even the leaves are carved from Siberian jade. But its true value goes far beyond the precious materials. This isn't simply a Fabergé masterpiece. It serves as a symbol connecting generations of soldiers from the same regiment.
I think it provides that link for all the different ages of soldiers that have soldiered with the regiment and are intending in the future to soldier with the regiment.
I find Fabergé things on the Antiques Roadshow, but nothing of this scale. And I can tell you that the size of the object, the sophistication of the object, the provenance of the object brings it very, very close to only 2 other flower studies in the United Kingdom which are in the Royal Collection. Given what are the qualifications I've already put on this object, it is a towering masterpiece of the goldsmith's art by the most famous goldsmith of the 20th century.
Although he had appraised many Fabergé pieces before, the expert said he had never encountered anything like this on Antiques Roadshow. And then came the moment everyone was waiting for. Can you guess what it was worth?
This is worth £1 million.
Really? It certainly isn't
No.
for sale.
Well, that's the
I'm
rub.
just a custodian.
I know.
But for its owner, this was never something to be sold. It is a piece of regimental history preserved on behalf of those who served in the past and those who will serve in the future.
I remember as a child, I would go to my grandfather's house. This was something that was always sort of proudly displayed in the living room. His dad had passed it to him, and then it passed to my dad and passed to me.
Are you a Baltimore family?
I'm a Baltimore family,
Okay.
correct.
Well, this is fabulous Baltimore silver. So we have a teapot, a coffee pot, and a covered sugar.
Some objects stay in a family for so long that they become part of its memories. Everyone knows they are important, but not everyone knows the real story they have been carrying. For the owner of this silver tea set, it was not an expensive antique locked away for protection. It was something he remembered seeing as a child, proudly displayed in his grandfather's living room. Through the generations, the silver set was passed from his great-grandfather to his grandfather to his father and eventually to him. But what the family had preserved was not just an old silver set. It was a piece of American silver history from more than 200 years ago. When the expert examined it, he identified it as Baltimore silver, created by Charles Louis Boehm, a silversmith working during the early 19th century. At that time, silver coffee and tea services were not simply objects used to serve drinks. They represented status, refinement, and the social position of the people who owned them. A large silver service displayed in a home was a way for a family to show its taste and success. But what made this set special was not only its size, it was also the period and design behind it. Created during the Federal period, the set reflected the influence of European neoclassical design, focusing on balance, elegance, and carefully controlled details. Instead of relying on excessive decoration, its value came from proportion, craftsmanship, and the subtle quality of every line. The engraved details and family monogram also showed that it once belonged to a specific family, helping preserve the story behind the piece. For collectors, antique silver is not judged only by the amount of metal it contains. What matters more is who made it, when it was created, and the journey it has survived. After more than 2 centuries, many silver services have been separated, lost, or disappeared completely. But this Charles Louis Boehm set remained together and continued passing through generations of the same family.
The scale is fabulous and a maker that is very desirable. And for insurance purposes, I would look at a figure at around $30,000.
Wow, that's amazing. Do you think it's something that can actually be used? Can it be used with coffee and tea in it?
Absolutely.
I'm not sure.
What if the most important baseball collection you've ever seen wasn't sitting in a museum or the Hall of Fame, but had remained in an ordinary family's possession for more than 140 years? That's exactly the story of Gail. When she arrived at the appraisal table, she brought only a few old baseball cards and a faded letter that had aged with time. At first glance, the collection looked surprisingly modest, but within seconds the expert realized this was anything but ordinary.
These are among the oldest baseball cards in existence.
The story begins in 1871. Gail's great-great-grandmother ran a boarding house in Boston. And the people staying there were not ordinary guests. They were members of the Boston Red Stockings, one of the earliest professional baseball teams in American history.
Back in 1871, my great-great-grandmother had a boarding house in Boston, and she housed the Boston baseball team.
The players lived there, shared meals there, and became part of the family's everyday life. Because of that connection, a young boy in the family began saving cards of the very players he saw on a regular basis. But the most remarkable item wasn't the cards. It was a letter.
While they were on a road trip in 1871 visiting the Washington Olympics, they got rained out, and they wrote her a letter at their boarding house telling her how much they missed her.
Just imagine that for a moment. An entire baseball team traveling on the road took the time to write to the woman who had cared for them. And on that letter were the signatures of nearly the entire roster. The signatures of men who helped lay the foundation for professional baseball in America.
Tremendous. To have anything with their signatures on it is phenomenal.
This wasn't simply sports memorabilia. It was a surviving piece of baseball's earliest history. And when the expert assembled everything into a single archive, the atmosphere immediately changed.
It is the greatest archive I have ever had at the Roadshow.
That alone was an extraordinary statement. But the real shock was still to come.
If you're going to insure it,
Insurance, okay.
I would insure it for at least $1 million.
Are you serious? Oh my. Holy smokes.
$1 million for a handful of old baseball cards, one old letter, and a family story that had survived for more than a century. Because sometimes the greatest value isn't found in the object itself. It's found in the fact that it survived long enough to tell a chapter of history the world had nearly forgotten. If someone told you that an old cigar box sitting in the corner of a closet could contain a small fortune, most people probably wouldn't believe it. But that's exactly how this story begins. No safe, no climate-controlled storage room. Just an old box that had been forgotten for decades.
I found them in the cigar box that you see in the back of the closet.
Inside that box was a baseball card collection that even experienced collectors would love to own. And within minutes of examining it, the expert realized these were far from ordinary cards. This was a collection of 1,948 Leaf baseball cards, one of the most sought-after post-war baseball card sets ever produced. But the discovery that changed everything came down to a single name.
The rookie card of one of the most important people of the 20th century, Jackie Robinson.
Jackie Robinson, the man who broke Major League Baseball's color barrier and became one of the most influential figures in American sports history. Owning one of his rookie cards would already be remarkable. But the owner didn't have just one.
You got 3 of those.
Yeah.
3 rookie cards, all sitting inside an old cigar box. All surviving for decades with almost no one paying attention to them. And Robinson was only the beginning. The collection also included names like Ted Williams, Bob Feller, and Satchel Paige, legends who helped define an entire era of American baseball.
1948 was kind of one of the first years after the war that a card set was produced, so there were a lot of rookies in that set.
Okay.
As the appraisal continued, the value of the collection began climbing quickly, especially the Jackie Robinson cards.
Because these sell for between $15,000 and $20,000 each.
Oh my God.
All right?
Okay.
$15,000 to $20,000 for a single card. And that was only part of the collection. Then came the number that left the owner nearly speechless.
I would put an insurance estimate on just these 1948 Leaf cards, the whole collection here, of $150,000.
$150,000, all from an old cigar box sitting in the corner of a closet. And that's what makes hidden treasure stories so fascinating. Because sometimes the most valuable thing in your house isn't locked away in a safe. It's simply waiting to be discovered after years of being forgotten. The Navajo Ute First Phase Blanket.
Nobody's ever looked at it that I'm aware of.
For generations, this blanket had simply been part of the family. The owner knew very little about it. He had heard that it might have been connected to Kit Carson and passed down through the family, but beyond that, it was just an old blanket that had always been there. What happened next was something he never expected.
Did you notice when you showed this to me that I kind of stopped breathing a little bit?
Yeah, you did.
I'm still having a little bit of trouble breathing here.
The expert's reaction said everything. The longer he looked, the more convinced he became that he was standing in front of one of the most important Native American textiles he had ever encountered on Antiques Roadshow.
And it's not just a chief's blanket, it's the first type of chief's blanket made.
This wasn't simply an old blanket. It was a first-phase chief's blanket woven by Navajo artisans for Ute leaders sometime between the 1840s and 1860s. Its design was strikingly simple. No elaborate patterns, no complicated decoration, yet that simplicity was exactly what made it so important.
This is Navajo weaving in its purest form. All of these things that we see later with diamonds and all kinds of different patterns comes much later than this. This is just pure linear design. This is the beginning of Navajo weaving.
In many ways, this textile represented the foundation of an entire weaving tradition. Even more remarkable was its condition. After more than a century and a half, it had survived in a state that few experts would have thought possible.
The condition of this is unbelievable. Unbelievable. We see these, we've got a little bit of damage over there. We have a very interesting thing here. This is almost like silk. It's made from hand-woven wool, but it's so finely done, it's like silk. Wow. It would repel water. And this here is dyed with indigo dyes. It was a very valuable dye at the time. And what's really interesting is right here, we have an old repair that was probably done in the 1860s. And it's done with raveled bayeta, which is in itself a very important thing in Navajo weaving. So all involved. It's an extraordinary piece of art. It's extremely rare. It is the most important thing that's come into the roadshow that I've seen.
Its age, rarity, and historical importance placed it in a category far beyond most antiques. Then came the question that changed the mood of the appraisal.
Are you a wealthy man, Ted?
No.
The answer drew a laugh. But only moments later, the true significance of the blanket became clear.
On a really bad day, this textile would be worth $350,000. On a good day, it's about $500,000.
Oh my God.
$500,000 for a blanket. Yet the most unforgettable part of the story came after the valuation.
I'm just laying on the back of a chair.
Well, sir, you have a national treasure.
For years, a national treasure had been resting on the back of a chair. And an entire family had been living alongside a piece of American history without ever realizing it.
I was taking lessons when I was a student in high school. My parents talked to my music teacher who had been in Italy, and he mentioned a place in Bologna, possibly knew of Poggi, the manufacturer, the maker of it. And fortunately, my grandfather was on a trip to Italy and took a detour to Bologna to meet up with the maker.
What did he pay for it?
The number that comes to mind as a kid was $600.
Yeah.
This instrument then became my instrument all through high school and college.
A viola bought for a high school student. At first, it sounds like a very ordinary family story. A young music student needed a better instrument. A music teacher mentioned a maker in Bologna. The grandfather happened to be in Italy, so he took a detour to meet the maker directly. The price in the guest's memory was only about $600, and then that viola became his instrument through high school and college. But that ordinary beginning is exactly what makes the twist so powerful. Because this was not an anonymous Italian instrument with a nice-looking label inside. This was an Ansaldo Poggi made in Bologna in 1967. In the world of fine string instruments, the name Poggi carries serious weight. He was not a mass producer. He was an Italian maker known for precise craftsmanship, beautiful wood selection, and almost obsessive standards. With a violin or viola, an appraiser cannot simply read the label and believe it. He has to examine the wood, the form, the wear, the handwriting inside, the brand, and every sign of construction. And this viola had strong clues. Spruce top, flamed maple, Poggi's handwriting inside the body, the A. Poggi brand, and family provenance that matched the trip to Bologna. But one detail made the story even more intense. This was a viola. Poggi is known to have made at least hundreds of instruments, but only 41 violas. Only 41. So how would the market see a viola once bought as a student instrument but carrying the name Ansaldo Poggi?
I talked to some of my colleagues about the marketplace. Good news is that in the Asian market and in the European market, the value for an Ansaldo Poggi viola in this kind of condition would be more like $300,000.
Okay. Okay. Well, I don't intend to sell it, you know.
For insurance purposes, I would put this at $330,000.
Sometimes a treasure is not forgotten in a corner. Sometimes it has been close all along, held, played, and simply waiting for someone to call its true value by name. 1892 H.F. Farney watercolor and gouache painting. What could possibly turn a picture once valued at only a few $100s into a masterpiece worth hundreds of thousands? This time, the answer began with a mosquito.
Not sure if it's a print or a painting, but when I got it, there was a mosquito underneath the glass. So I took it out to the front yard and I opened it up to get the mosquito out so I could take it with me to college. And then it kind of scared me a little. I closed it back up immediately because it looked like it might be real.
For years, the family believed this was nothing more than an ordinary print hanging above the grandmother's bed. Even previous appraisals never suggested otherwise. The picture was simply grouped with the household furnishings and quietly forgotten. Everything changed when a tiny mosquito prompted the owner to open the frame.
It was appraised in like a general house appraisal twice. In 1998, it was appraised as a print at $200, and in 2004, it was appraised at $250.
Twice it was appraised. Twice it was identified as a print worth only a few $100s. But a closer look by the Antiques Roadshow experts revealed something completely different. It was an original work by Henry Francois Farney, one of America's most celebrated painters of Native American life. Its outstanding composition, excellent condition, and highly desirable subject matter made it exactly the kind of painting collectors hope to find.
So if we were going to put this in an auction today, I would suggest an estimate of $200,000 to $300,000.
From just a few $100s to an auction estimate of $200,000 to $300,000. In an instant, every previous appraisal became meaningless.
Oh my God. That's so much. I don't even know what to say. Should I have left the mosquito in the back?
No, it's good that the bug wasn't there anymore.
A tiny mosquito unexpectedly became part of one of the most unforgettable appraisals in Antiques Roadshow history. Had the owner never opened the frame that day, the artwork might have remained nothing more than a print worth a few $100s. Instead, the family discovered they had owned an original Henry Francois Farney painting worth as much as $300,000. That's what makes Antiques Roadshow so fascinating. Sometimes all it takes is one small detail to completely change the story of a work of art. This piece began with a trip to Europe in 1969, when the owner was only 14 years old. His family stopped to visit one of his father's friends south of Paris. And by chance, that visit led directly to the family of Alexander Calder.
When I was 14, I traveled to Europe with my parents, and it turns out his friend was married to the daughter of Alexander Calder.
That detail makes the story much more than a simple line of provenance. As a young boy, he saw Calder inside his studio. He had seen Calder's hand affected by Parkinson's, but when the artist began working, that same hand became still. Then his 15th birthday arrived during that very trip, and the gift he received was not an ordinary souvenir.
I had my 15th birthday while we were there, and that was in July of 1969. And he presented me this sculpture as my 15th birthday present. I saw him working in his shop on something similar to this.
A sculpture given directly by Alexander Calder, and possibly made by him around the same time the owner had seen him working in the studio. For a work of art, provenance like that is almost impossible to improve. But the experts still had to examine the object itself, the structure, the movement, the signature, and Calder's place in 20th century art.
Calder is one of America's leading sculptors of the 20th century. And this is wonderful because you have the base and this amazingly balanced piece.
It is both stable and moving, a very Calder kind of balance, simple at first glance but carefully calculated in weight and motion. The piece has a monogram, it is handmade, and most importantly, the story behind it is almost unbelievably strong.
I've never heard of better provenance on something artistic than what you've given us. But it still has to be submitted to the Alexander Calder Foundation. They authenticate pieces.
Even with remarkable provenance, the art market still needs official authentication. But even before that final step, the expert gave a number that completely changed the mood of the case.
They're fairly rare, especially in this size. In a gallery setting, this would be $250,000.
Wow. Jeez, that's amazing. I mean, it's probably worth more than that to me, just in memories, but that's spectacular.
Yeah.
$250,000 for a birthday gift. But for the owner, the memory may be worth even more than the number. This is not just a Calder. It is the moment a 15-year-old boy stepped into the world of a great artist and carried a piece of that memory with him for the rest of his life. If someone asked you to name the single firearm that changed the future of modern warfare, you'd probably think of a machine gun, an assault rifle, or some revolutionary weapon from the 20th century. You probably wouldn't think of a small revolver made nearly 200 years ago. But that's exactly where today's story begins.
I've had it over 40 years, and I've always collected antique arms.
And this pistol was made by Sam Colt in Paterson, New Jersey, and his patent was 1836.
Yeah.
I would say that this was actually made in the first months of 1837.
That was the breakthrough moment. Because if the expert was correct, this wasn't simply an early Colt revolver. It could be one of the very first examples produced after Colt's revolutionary design entered the world. And that changes everything. Today, firing 5 rounds without reloading sounds completely ordinary. In 1837, it was a different story. Most soldiers were still carrying firearms that fired once and then required a lengthy reload before they could shoot again. In a real fight, those extra seconds could mean the difference between survival and disaster.
And you would have 5 shots because it's a revolver.
Yeah.
Now, Colt didn't invent the revolver, he just perfected it.
And that perfection is what made this firearm so important. It proved that sustained firepower was possible. It showed what the future could look like. For many historians, firearms development can almost be divided into 2 periods, before revolvers like this and after them. The experts certainly believed its importance went that far.
In my opinion, this is the most important firearm ever made in the development and the history of firearms.
By now, there was only one question left. How much was something like this actually worth? And perhaps even more surprising, how much had the owner paid for it all those years ago?
So, how much did you buy it for?
Originally, I paid £150 for it.
Well, I have no reason to doubt that it's not a right one. If it is, then I think it's got to be £150,000.
From £150 to £150,000. A 1,000-fold increase. The kind of valuation that would shock almost any collector. But even that wasn't the biggest surprise. After decades spent examining historic firearms, the expert believed he was looking at the single most important firearm he had ever encountered on Antiques Roadshow. And somehow, this was only the beginning of our countdown. Sometimes the reason a collection ends up being worth tens of thousands of dollars isn't because someone found a hidden treasure, it's because someone unknowingly saved it from disappearing forever. This story begins with a collection of old baseball cards that had been sitting in the family for years. They had been around for so long that nobody really thought of them as anything extraordinary, and things might have stayed that way if one ordinary weekend hadn't changed everything.
One weekend while my husband was gone, I decided I'd just look at them, and as I'm sorting them, I'm like, oh my gosh, he's really got a nice collection.
The wife began organizing items around the house and gathering things that had been scattered in different places. Among them was this baseball card collection. At the time, it felt like nothing more than a routine household project, but only a month later, that simple decision would prove incredibly important.
And then the neat thing about it is that a month after I did that, our home got hit by a tornado and everything in that attic disappeared.
A tornado tore through the property. The house suffered devastating damage. Countless possessions were destroyed or lost entirely, yet somehow the cards survived, simply because they had been moved before the storm arrived.
But you had rescued these cards about a month prior.
Just a month prior, so yeah. It's like, wow.
Without that decision, this story might have ended before it ever began. Instead, the experts now had the opportunity to examine the collection card by card, revealing names like Ted Williams and Jackie Robinson before arriving at the card that immediately captured everyone's attention: Mickey Mantle.
So last card we have is the 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle rookie card.
Right.
In the world of baseball cards, few names carry more weight than Mickey Mantle. A single card can dramatically change the value of an entire collection, which is why the owner's expression changed as soon as the expert began discussing its potential.
So this one, I assigned a numerical grade of 5. We put an auction value on that one of $30,000 to $40,000.
You're kidding. Seriously.
Yeah. The numerical grades are so important to the collectors.
Yeah.
And on some of the high-end cards, that numerical grade, the difference of a 5 or a 6 is tens of thousands of dollars.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But let's just say if I was too strict and it was to grade a 6, then we would be looking at $80,000 to $120,000.
Oh my God.
Even without reaching that higher grade, the collection's value was still remarkable. What had once been a group of cards sitting quietly in a family home had become a collection worth tens of thousands of dollars, and one that came dangerously close to being lost forever. Because sometimes a treasure isn't valuable simply because it's rare. Sometimes it's valuable because it survived. The Beatrice Cenci Micromosaic. At first glance, most people would assume this is simply a painted portrait. The closer you look, however, the more extraordinary it becomes.
I was amazed that something made from stone or ceramic could actually look like a painting.
These are actually glass.
What appears to be a painting is actually something entirely different. This is a micromosaic, a highly specialized art form created from thousands of tiny pieces of colored glass assembled so precisely that, from a distance, they become almost indistinguishable from brushstrokes.
Up to 15,000 different colors in glass would have been made to create micromosaic artwork.
That remarkable craftsmanship is only part of the story. The subject of the portrait is Beatrice Cenci, one of the most tragic and controversial figures in Italian history. According to the story that has survived through the centuries, she endured years of abuse at the hands of her father before becoming involved in his murder. She was later tried, convicted, and executed, transforming her into a figure viewed by many as both a victim and a criminal.
She was both a heroine as well as a murderess.
She's a tragic hero, absolutely.
Her dramatic story inspired generations of artists, writers, and poets throughout the 19th century. As the expert examined the plaque more closely, he discovered the signature of Moglia.
It was almost certainly done in Italy.
The Moglia family was among the finest makers of Italian micromosaics, and works of this scale rarely appear on the market.
The art of micromosaic on this sort of scale, which is actually very, very large for a mosaic, is incredibly rare and incredibly exciting to find on Antiques Roadshow.
That rarity explains why the expert could barely contain his excitement.
I nearly leapt over my colleague to look at this.
Then came the valuation.
I would think an insurance valuation of $85,000.
Cool.
Would be a fair price.
$85,000 for a work assembled from countless tiny fragments of glass. But what makes it truly memorable is the way a centuries-old Italian tragedy was preserved in a masterpiece that, at first glance, looks like nothing more than an ordinary painting.
I cannot think of a better venue to see a tiara than at Balmoral Castle.
Absolutely. And it's been worn here.
Well,
from the moment this tiara appeared on Antiques Roadshow, it already carried a special story. Unlike many antique jewelry pieces that spend decades stored away, this one had actually been worn during important occasions and became part of the family's memories. For the owner, its original value was not about diamonds or an appraisal number, but about the moments it had witnessed. And one of the most unforgettable memories was her wedding day, more than half a century earlier.
I think you have this
I
wonderful
have a photograph of myself at my wedding 52 years ago. And I remember the hairdresser coming to fix it on very securely, because with the veil, it had to be really firmly in place.
And what did it feel like wearing this?
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. You feel like a fairy princess.
But beyond the family story, the expert quickly noticed another fascinating detail about its craftsmanship. In the early 20th century, many high-end jewelry pieces were created not only to be beautiful, but also to be versatile. A single piece could be worn in multiple ways, and this tiara was a perfect example.
You wear it as a necklace,
Yes.
but it has a frame that can
That's
be put
right.
on it so that it can be worn
Yes.
as a tiara.
Yes.
And
The ability to transform between a necklace and a tiara revealed an impressive level of craftsmanship, as the design needed to remain both secure and elegant in both forms. Details like the platinum structure, diamonds, and refined finishing also showed that this was a piece from an important period in jewelry history. After considering both the craftsmanship and the lasting appeal of antique tiaras, the expert finally revealed its true value.
well, you know, I can see this being very sought after because tiaras are still very popular.
Yes.
With the right auction, I would say this could be in excess of £60,000.
Really? We might have to up the insurance.
From a piece of jewelry connected to family memories, this tiara turned out to be a beautifully crafted diamond treasure worth far more than its owner ever expected. Case: 4 Art Deco-style diamonds, bracelet, and Van Cleef ring.
And this took place probably once a month for almost 12 years. And when she passed, she left these 2 items to me in her will. And I remember admiring the ring because that was something that she would always wear when I'd see her Sunday night.
For the owner, these 2 pieces of jewelry were not originally seen as a luxury collection, but as memories of a special friendship that lasted for many years. But when they appeared on Antiques Roadshow, the expert quickly realized there were more surprises hidden behind this emotional story. The attention first went to the bracelet. With its many diamonds and eye-catching design, it seemed like the most valuable piece in the appraisal. And as expected, the bracelet was truly a high-quality creation.
The bracelet's kind of a classic 1940s bracelet. We can tell it has some European-cut diamonds in it. If you look through the bracelet, the larger round stones all add up to about 8 carats.
The European-cut diamonds, classic 1940s design and platinum setting, showed that this was a beautifully crafted piece of jewelry. But what made the story even more interesting was that this valuable bracelet was not the biggest discovery. The smaller and less noticeable item was actually the one that truly excited the expert.
Today, if I had to reappraise that for auction, I would tell you that that bracelet would be $15,000 to $20,000.
Wow, that's quite a gift.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm not here for the bracelet. I'm here for the ring.
Oh, really?
At first glance, the ring was an elegant design featuring pearls, platinum, and diamonds. But in the world of fine jewelry, sometimes a tiny detail like a maker's signature can completely change the value. And after taking a closer look, the expert discovered something special hidden on the ring.
Now, when we turn the ring around
Yes.
and we pull it off, over here is where the magic starts to happen. We can see right over here, it is signed, VCA.
Van Cleef and Arpels.
Those 3 small letters confirm that the ring came from Van Cleef and Arpels, one of the most prestigious jewelry brands in the world. In the end, the piece that was overshadowed by the diamond bracelet became the biggest surprise, turning a gift from an old friend into a true hidden treasure.
Well, my husband and I were on vacation in London. We're art collectors. We happened to walk into an auction house. We saw this piece and realized that it was coming up for auction the next day. We came back, we bid on it, and we were lucky enough to get it.
Sometimes, the most fascinating discoveries do not come after years of searching. They begin with a completely unexpected moment. During a trip to London, this couple walked into an auction house with no plan of finding a hidden treasure. They noticed this antique clock, discovered it was going up for auction the very next day, and decided to come back and take a chance. At that moment, they only knew one thing. They loved the way it looked. But what they did not realize was that behind its unusual design was a piece created during a time when clocks were not made only to tell time. They were symbols of engineering, artistry, and status. As soon as the expert examined it, several details revealed that this was not just another decorative clock. The first clue was hidden in the winding mechanism, a feature connected to 18th century clockmaking, before later movements changed the way these pieces were designed. But the detail that truly made it stand out was the orbit mechanism. Instead of a traditional clock face with hands, this clock uses rotating rings to display the time, turning the entire object into a small mechanical performance. In the 18th century, high-end French clocks existed somewhere between science and art. The movement inside represented precision, while the exterior was crafted almost like a luxury sculpture. The ormolu gilding and individually cast metal details that were carefully assembled together showed just how much skill went into creating this piece. But the detail that could completely change its value was not even part of the clock itself. The owner revealed that she still had a pair of matching candelabra at home, and that opened up another possibility. This may have originally been a complete garniture set with the clock as the centerpiece and 2 matching candle holders on each side. After hundreds of years, many sets like this have been separated, sold individually, or lost. So if those matching pieces were still original, an already valuable clock could become the kind of complete collection that serious collectors hope to find.
I feel that the clock alone is worth in the neighborhood of $25,000 to $30,000 if it was just the clock. I believe that if you had the candelabra with it and they were authentic to the piece, that would at least double the value. I think it would be fair to say that they would run over $60,000 if they're as in good condition as this is and as fine.
I got it from my mother, who got it from her parents, and it goes back to my great-grandfather, who managed a shipyard during World War I. And after the war, he traveled around the world and brought home some souvenirs. And this was one of them.
But what the family did not know was that sometimes the smallest objects can hide the biggest historical stories. In the world of antique jewelry, age is only one part of what creates value. What matters even more is whether the origin, previous owners, and journey of the piece can be verified. Especially with items that are hundreds of years old, many jewels have been altered, taken apart, or lost important evidence over time. And one detail preserved with this piece opened the door to its true story.
And we have an original bill of sale, and it's dated 1923, and it came from Arnold Seligman in Paris. Seligman was a very well-known connoisseur and collector of antiquities, Renaissance jewels, and, as he says, curiosities on his bill of sale.
For collectors, provenance can be the factor that transforms a beautiful piece of jewelry into a historical artifact. The further back in time a piece goes, the rarer it becomes to find one with its story still intact. But the next discovery was what truly placed this jewel beyond an ordinary antique.
This jewel had been made for Gabriel Bethlen. He was the Prince of Transylvania in honor of his marriage to Catherine of Brandenburg, and that it dates from the late 16th century. And so what you do have here is the actual jewel. There are many pieces out there that have attributions that are never quite correct, but this piece is 100% correct.
A Renaissance marriage jewel was not created only for beauty. It was a piece filled with symbolism. During this period in Europe, these jewels often told stories through gold, gemstones, and religious imagery. Combined with hand craftsmanship, enamel work, and traditional rose-cut diamonds, surviving examples have become highly desirable among collectors. After considering its rarity, scale, and meaning behind the design, the expert finally revealed the appraisal.
On the roadshow, we see very few late 16th century pieces. There just aren't that many out there, and it's the scale and the magnitude of this piece and the symbolism that really makes it so extraordinary. At auction, I would place a value on this of somewhere between $50,000 and $60,000.
What began as a family piece passed down through generations became a rare Renaissance jewelry discovery, where the true value came from both its craftsmanship and the history it carried.
My family was born in St. Petersburg, Russia, and during the revolution, those that could escaped and went from Russia to Finland, from Finland to Riga, where I was born. My grandmother and my aunt escaped with the jewelry to Finland, and they escaped by lying flat on the bottom of a boat, and they put rags and stuff on top, and the jewelry came with them.
That image alone makes this jewelry feel unlike a normal appraisal. The women were lying flat on the bottom of a boat, covered with rags, while the jewelry traveled with them, not as decoration, but as the last pieces of a life that had collapsed. The owner explains that many members of her family were killed by the Bolsheviks because they were nobility. That means every stone here carries a story much heavier than its surface beauty.
This one has a detachable element that turns it into a brooch. There's a small screw in the back and it would screw into a diadem. So this is actually a piece of tiara from your family.
Well, that makes it even dearer to me. I don't care if it was made out of tin, I would still love it.
That line becomes the emotional center of the case. She did not care if it had been made of tin, because the real value did not begin with the metal. It began with the fact that this object had survived with her family through the collapse of an entire world. Still, in material terms, the two selected pieces were far from ordinary.
The ring is equally valuable. It's comprised of platinum and 2 mine cushion cut diamonds and a ruby in the center. A fair retail price for the brooch is between $15,000 and $20,000. And the ring, while it's scratched and worn and much more diminutive, because of the stones in it, specifically that central red stone, is worth as well $15,000 to $20,000.
In another case, a brooch and ring might be judged only by diamonds, ruby, platinum, and condition. Here, those details mattered, but they sat on top of a much older and more dramatic story. Together, just those two pieces could reach $30,000 to $40,000, but that number still cannot fully explain what they had been through. They were not simply luxury items brought to a television table. They were survivors of flight, loss, and family memory, and the appraiser clearly understood that. James Cox Silver Swan Automaton. Continuing the countdown is a silver swan that is impressive not only because of its beautiful appearance. What makes it truly special is its ability to move, play music, and create the feeling of a real living creature appearing in front of the viewer. This is not just a silver artwork. It is a combination of art, engineering, and the imagination of the 18th century.
Well, here's Simon of the two great collectors, Josephine and John Bowes, and what many people regard as the centerpiece of their collection. Indeed, it's the very first thing you see as you come into the museum, this magnificent swan. It really is breathtaking, isn't it?
Yes, and it has a quite extraordinary history, too.
At that time, automatons were considered some of the most remarkable achievements in craftsmanship. Long before modern technology, machines capable of recreating natural movements could almost feel like magic. And the Silver Swan was created by James Cox, one of the most famous makers in this field.
In 1773, there was an Act of Parliament passed allowing James Cox, who was the most famous 18th century maker of these automaton pieces, to actually have a lottery which included 58 pieces on this scale. Well, it didn't sell in the lottery. It was sold in his bankrupt stock. He went broke some years later.
Interestingly, the journey of the Silver Swan did not begin as a treasure that was immediately desired by everyone. It went through many changes before becoming a historic icon. But over time, its rarity and almost impossible to recreate craftsmanship completely transformed the way people valued it.
It turned up at the 1867 exhibition in Paris on sale for £2,000. A couple of years later, the Bowes bought it for £200, and it came here.
What a bargain.
From an object that once changed hands for a surprising price, the Silver Swan gradually became one of the most famous surviving automatons. What takes it far beyond an ordinary sculpture is the complex mechanical system hidden inside. It does not simply recreate the appearance of a swan. It attempts to capture the movement and illusion of life itself.
Well, there are 3 movements. One controls the water, which is actually simulated by glass rods with swimming fish. The second one plays the music, and the third one, which is the most remarkable, actually controls the movements of the neck. Now, there are 111 individual silver collars, all linked together. There are vertebrae inside, linked together by minute chains.
These details are what transformed the Silver Swan into an 18th century mechanical wonder. Hundreds of tiny components have to work together precisely to create movements that appear smooth and natural. Using silver, gears, and imagination, James Cox created a piece that stands between art and science. A machine born from metal, yet one that still gives people the feeling of life moving within it. This next case begins with a ring that was never meant to be forgotten inside a box. It was created to be seen, to catch attention at social events, and to become part of the personality of the person wearing it. But with special pieces of jewelry, the real value is not always just about gold, diamonds, or gemstones. Sometimes the bigger question is, who wore it? And is the story behind the piece just as fascinating as the jewelry itself?
Well, this lady is Pat Marlowe, who was a socialite during the late 40s and 50s, working on the stage in the West End. One of the people that she met was Prince Ali Khan. And Prince Ali Khan, who married Rita Hayworth later on.
Right.
But he also had a liaison with Pat and had these jewels made for her.
The moment Pat Marlowe's name enters the story, this ring becomes more than just a beautiful piece of jewelry. It returns to the world it originally belonged to, the West End stage, high society, and the glamorous social circles of the late 1940s and 1950s. And that perfectly matches the spirit of cocktail jewelry. These pieces were not designed to disappear quietly on someone's hand. They were created to make a statement, with stronger colors, larger forms, and a much bolder personality. But the detail that completely changes this story is one name, Boucheron, one of the most respected jewelry maisons in France. When a piece carries the Boucheron Paris signature, collectors are not only looking at the gemstones themselves, they are looking at the design, the craftsmanship, and the history behind the maker. This ring shows exactly why. The rope pattern gold, combined with emeralds, sapphires, rubies, and diamonds, creates a vibrant design that reflects the energy of post-war jewelry, confident, colorful, and full of life. But another layer makes it even more interesting, the provenance. A Boucheron piece is already special. But a Boucheron piece once owned by someone connected to the stage, parties, and high society creates a much deeper story. Because this was not simply jewelry made to be owned. It was made to be worn, remembered, and become part of the image of the woman who carried it.
The ring, £5,000. The bracelet watch, £15,000.
Okay, thank you.
In other words, £20,000 for the two. Absolutely stonking.
£20,000 for both pieces. But what stayed with the expert was not only the value.
This piece was originally an engagement ring of my great aunt. Her name was Renee Thornton. She was actually a coloratura soprano at the Metropolitan Opera in the 1920s.
From the story behind it, this piece was already more than just an ordinary diamond pendant. Before being passed down through the family, it belonged to a woman with a special life connected to the famous world of opera. In the early 20th century, fine jewelry was not only a display of beauty or wealth, it also represented social status, relationships, and important moments in the owner's life. With antique jewelry, value sometimes comes not only from diamonds or design, but also from the people and stories connected to the piece. And the journey of this jewel continued with another new chapter.
After that, she divorced her husband, who was a conductor of the Met, and she ended up marrying in the 30s, early 30s, a duke from Italy, and she was the Duchess d'Andria, and this was her engagement ring.
Across generations, family jewelry is often changed to suit its next owner. Some pieces are stored away and forgotten, while others are transformed so they can continue to be worn and appreciated. And that is exactly what happened with this piece.
My mother inherited it, and she didn't like it as an engagement ring, so she changed the back of it and changed it from a ring to a pendant that my mom could wear.
Okay. It's a very beautiful piece.
After a closer inspection, the expert realized the piece still carried many features of high-end jewelry from the early 20th century. The platinum and gold structure, along with the craftsmanship style, reflected the skill of jewelers from that period. But beyond its history, the diamonds on the pendant were also an important part of its value.
That center diamond is about a carat 17, and this is by calculation, so I'm measuring and figuring out what I think it is. I think a piece like this, retail, would be $20,000.
Old European cut diamonds are connected to the period before modern cutting techniques became widely used. Combined with the heart-shaped design, diamond quality, and the story of Renee Thornton, the pendant became a connection between art, personal history, and fine jewelry. From a family piece transformed over time, it turned out to preserve a special story lasting across generations.
My grandfather was a colonel in the U.S. Army, and during the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, he was given an assignment to go to Stockholm, where he was going to be military attaché. When they got to St. Petersburg, the bullets were flying, but he grabbed the family, put my mother on his shoulders, and they ran. And they got to Stockholm eventually.
Many pieces of jewelry are simply passed down through generations. This collection seems to have escaped history itself. The owner's grandfather, a U.S. Army colonel, found himself caught in the chaos surrounding the Bolshevik Revolution while traveling to his new assignment in Stockholm. After eventually reaching safety, he learned that people connected to the Russian imperial court were desperately trying to flee. He decided to help them. And that's when something remarkable happened. Women who had once served within the imperial court tore open the hems of their dresses and revealed jewels hidden inside. They wanted to give them to him as a gesture of gratitude.
And they said to him, "We would like to give them to you." And he said, "No, you're not going to give them to me. I will pay you for them, and I will pay you better than they're worth."
What makes the story even more compelling is that the family still has the original paperwork. A receipt from 1,920 documents the payment he made to a baroness. That document serves as a direct link between these jewels and a very specific moment in history.
We have the receipt from the baroness who met with him, and the letter says that the baroness has received 3,700 kroner from my grandfather, and the date is October 8th, 1920.
According to the appraiser, these women were not servants. They were trusted companions and close associates of the Russian Empress. That detail makes the collection's origins even more significant.
They're confidants and secretaries and basically friends of the Empress. Exactly. So she might have been a baroness and a confidant to the Empress, and maybe they were gifted by the Empress to her.
The jewelry itself dates from before the Russian Revolution, roughly between the 1860s and the 1880s. But the most important part of the story isn't the age of the pieces or the number of diamonds they contain. It's the history that has traveled with them for more than a century.
But most importantly, it's pre-revolutionary Russian court jewelry. I would give it an insurance value of $18,000 to $24,000.
An insurance value of $18,000 to $24,000 is certainly impressive. But this is one of those cases where the history may be even more valuable than the jewelry itself.